Hello, and welcome to Chris's Comments. This is my very first show. It's a discussion where everything is on common ground and common sense, no matter what the subject. And the reason for this is due to the extreme points of views that are being taken place right now. On one side, there's a bunch of we're right, they're wrong. You need to believe with what we believe, because if you don't, if you give them just a little increment of power, you're ruining the country. You're ruining this nation. The nation is doomed. It's doomed. And at the same time, on the other side of that very same aisle, right across the aisle of that, you've got this whole bunch of there's right and there's wrong, and we're going to correct the wrongs. And if you follow or believe anything of what they say, you're going to be responsible for what's ruining this country. The nation is doomed. It's all doomed. And right in between both of those two extreme points of views, you got people like you and me, down-to-earth people who really only have one thing in common: to live happy with as little headaches as possible. Okay? And that's where this show comes in. It's for down-to-earth people like you and me, where sometimes we can ignore all that doom, and sometimes you gotta talk about it. And on this show is where everything's going to be talked about with common sense, on common grounds. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is about the pandemic, the coronavirus, and this bill that's supposed to be $1.9 trillion for the people, provided by our current president, President Biden. Now, he's got opposition with the Republicans that are saying it should only be $600 billion because $1.9 trillion is too generous, which is completely stupid. There's no such thing as a too generous of a government. There never has been. And besides, this is all our tax-paying dollars being put to good use. And it is really nice to know that we can see it actually being put to good use. Because if we could go as far as 1.9 trillion, and let's say the Republicans get their, or the conservatives, or just any opposition gets what they want, 600 billion, well, where do the other 400 billion go? It just doesn't make any sense to ask to be provided with only 600 billion when we can actually go as far as 1.9 trillion. Now, a lot of people will say that the reason for it is because there's just no money into this, which we can all pretty much take a step back and see that there is. We pitch in quite a few billions of dollars a year in taxes alone. But you and I are just common people. There's a wealthier class that can actually pay their fair share of taxes, and, everything would be okay, especially in accordance to the Biden tax plan, which is $3.33 to be exact, trillion dollars between this year, 2021, and 2030. Biden's taxes on the businesses account for an estimated of 46% of revenue gains. That's some serious money. That's some serious money that is not being given to the country. And what we're talking about, or what he's talking about, is like an increase of corporate tax rate to 28%, which will lead to $1 trillion over 10 years. 15% corporate minimum. The tax increases international profits. Higher taxes on individuals for those who are making over $400,000 a year. Me being a normal average guy, I can't even picture that much in a year. But to think that there's actually people out there that can actually pay taxes because they're making $400,000 a year, to see that they can do this for a decade till 2020, till 2030. I mean, that speaks volumes, you know. Also, earning capital gains and earning dividends, all of these things right there alone will make $1 trillion over 10 years, you know. All of those things. So individually, you splice it up, and it does come up to about 3.33 trillion. Now, I'm happy for just an ordinary 3 trillion. I think a 3 trillion in the bank for our country would be fantastic. But apparently these guys know what they're doing, and if we can actually pull that off, that is fantastic, especially once this pandemic is over, which, again, the payment for knocking out the pandemic is 1.9 trillion. You know, that's just a third of the 3.33 that can be accumulated. And on a personal level, you know, to have the people that have been dodging paying taxes finally having to pay their fair share, I think that's 100% justified. Because God knows they've been taking quite a bit from us this entire time. A lot of these things that are going to be presented are usually negotiated, you know, through the, you know, in Congress and all that, in the Senate and everything, with the government. And usually, I mean, especially we're talking about Biden here, so he was Obama's guy for a while, and for 2 terms. And Obama had this huge problem of giving into conservatives' request in order to get something out for him. You know, the primary one was Medicare, medical aid for children who were born with pre-existing conditions. In order for him to actually have that into effect, he had to let the Bush tax cuts keep going. He had to have that renewed. And it really just didn't set much of a precedence for us down here, for us little people. Because we're under their high taxations, and, you know, very little coming back to us through the Bush tax cuts. And Obama, he just had this bad habit of saying, okay, you keep this, but we get to have this progressive plan in effect. And that's how they would do it. Here's the thing, though, where the Democrats are now we're half and half of power, with one split decider making, with one being Kamala Harris, in the new plans and these new rules and everything. You know, this means Biden's got the ability, and Biden and the administration have the ability to just oversee and not overrun, but just put aside whatever crap requests that the Republicans have. And they could put that over to one side and kick it to the curb and just move on with their plan. You know, $3 trillion plan, you know, a COVID plan, you know, and even the liberal stuff, the liberalism stuff, like the abortion issue, which is where I want to close. Now, I'm pro-choice. I'll give you that. But I got no problem with pro-lifers. Pro-lifers are fine. It's the leaders that are influencing them that's a pain in the ass. It's the influencers that are trying to say, not with our tax-paying dollars. Well, everything medical involves our tax-paying dollars. You know, anything that doesn't is a brand name, and that's usually just some pharmaceutical crap. You know, it really has nothing to do with the plans or health plans. And that's on a financial level. So for people that say, oh no, it's a moral issue, well, let's see, we're talking about morals, defending life before it's born. But when it's born, it's on its own. And then to top it all off, it's usually influenced to do something like go to a war, and go fight and die in a war. And that's just silly. Especially to people like you and me, who we take a step back and look at this, it's just like, why in the world are we following this kind of crap? But you know what? At the same time, serving your country, I'll be honest, that's the one regret that I actually have concerning this. Not to have been a law enforcer, not to have been president myself, never to have gone into office or anything, to do good for the community and all that, but to at least serve. And back when I was a kid, back when I was young adult, we had an option. We could do a whole 4 years, or we can do just 2. We could actually do 2 years to serve our country. Looking back on it, yeah, I regret it, So as far as being a pro-lifer, and even if you're going to go to join the military service to go die somewhere, you've got your issues and everything, but it still doesn't really clarify or justify being an anti-abortionist to the extreme, Okay, and which leads to, speaking of morals, leads to religion, something that I'm really touchy about, because well, not really touchy, everybody's touchy about with me, because I don't have a problem with believing in God. I don't have a problem with declaring Jesus as my Lord and Savior, my faith keeper, my ability to maintain. What I do have a problem with is the religious organizations that influence hate, even to abortion or pro-lifers, pro-choicers. Because their one stigma is life begins at conception, and that Jesus told us to go multiply, God told us to multiply, and, killing babies is not good. Technically, killing itself is not good. Killing in itself is not good. But that's a different subject. That's a subject for a different time. And I will tackle that. I really don't think I need to amongst you and I, but for the rest of the viewers out there, that's an ongoing argument. But where I'm going with this is, how about the responsibility aspect of it, especially as a Christian? Okay? It's in the Bible. Psalms 8:6. You made him a ruler over the works of your hands, and you put everything under his feet. Okay? How about Psalms 115:16? The highest heavens belongs to the Lord, but the earth has been given to man. It's our responsibility down here to handle life and death. As sure as we're handling it when we go to a war. As sure as we're handling it when we see somebody choking on food. It's our responsibility to deal with this stuff, even when it comes to pregnancies. There's a huge aspect of women's selfishness or man's selfishness that they just don't want to be a kid. That is an aspect, sure. There's a huge stress which can lead to a medical problem, which, for the record, abortions were created due to medical problems. Not any of this shame, what would my mother think, what would the town think, viewpoints, circumstance. No, abortions are created for medical purposes. Either you're going to lose the child, or you're going to lose the mother, or the pregnancy is so whacked that it takes out both. The abortion was derived for medical reasons. And it was our responsibility to maintain those reasons, to uphold them, to uphold the reasons. And it's just not being done with my fellow Christians, especially the ones that are grouped together in religious organizations. Serve one another with whatever gift each of you has received. Now that's in 1 Peter 4:10. And this is where I come in, reminding everybody, people, especially my fellow Christians, we got a responsibility. It's our duty to make sure that these surgeries are not abused and that they're held responsible. 1 Corinthians, to each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. For to one is given through the Spirit the utterance of wisdom, to another faith, to another the gift of healing, to another working of miracles. I have no earthly idea where you and I stand. I know where I stand. I'm a simpleton. I work for the common good. But as long as there are those with the utterance of wisdom, as long as there are those that have the gift of healing, miracle working, this is also not just a common ground of common sense. People, let the people do their jobs. This is also on a sticking to the religious level. My fellow brethren, please, let's focus on the responsibility of all this stuff. We've been given this God-given talent, and this is what I see my fellow brethren doing with it. Now, had I known this was going to happen 20 years, 30 years ago, I would have gone and been a doctor and tried to do all this stuff. I could have sworn I was going to be a dead rock star by the time I was 30, but that didn't happen. So now that my brain is mush and it's just cleared, because I'm also 20 years sober. I'm sobered up August 27, 2001. Took a long time to unscatter everything upstairs. But now that I see everything with a whole lot more clarity in this day and age, I find a reason to speak up and to speak my mind and clarify, speak clearly with these thoughts towards my brethren, religious and non-religious, whether they're even the same ethnicity of mine or not. It doesn't matter. It's just the simple fact that I see a quest out of everybody, and everybody's one purpose is reaching what I go by, what people like you and me go by. To live happy with as little headaches as possible. The search for things, common ground and common sense. And with that, I'm going to leave this very first episode, Monday, February 1st. I have no earthly idea where YouTube will let me, will schedule me to this, but I'm writing this right now because currently this is what's going on. And wishing everybody a more better off than usual day. A little better off than we last seen each other. You take care. We'll catch you later. We'll see you next time. Probably next week. And stay cool. Have a good one.